All righty, welcome, folks. And I know we got a big group from auto here. We got a big group from business here. That's great. See you all. Welcome. So this is our third Guided Pathways faculty discussion group. And so the purpose here today is to give you folks a chance to give feedback and help us design the career academic pathways that we're developing here at Citrus. So let's just dive right into it here. So I'm going to start out with just some of the basics here. What are these about the terminology here? So guided pathways. What is guided pathways? So it's got this nice long description: a career-focused, student-centered, comprehensive support system for career exploration, workforce entry, and transfer prep. Okay, let's pull that apart a bit. Talk a little bit. Career-focused. Look, most of our students here are not coming here just because they want to spend 4 to 6 years in our scintillating company. Sorry, yeah, I know. Right?
Well, maybe after they meet you, Dave.
Yeah. Then they want to keep coming back. I know, yeah. No, look, they've got a goal in mind, right? Our students are trying to get somewhere here. And so we're trying to set up our college in a way that helps them get to the goals that they've got in mind, and especially those career goals. Okay? It is student-centered. It is based, a lot of this, an inspiration for this, a lot of the work that we've been doing as we've been developing this, has come from feedback from our students. Our students telling us, we don't understand this, right? There's a lot of stuff which by the time you get to where we are as faculty, we have we know a lot about the college process. Many of our students don't have that. They're coming in and they're what's a degree, right? What does that mean? How does that relate to what I want to do? So we're trying to give them a roadmap, a way of getting through the college process to get a sense of where they're going. Okay, it's a comprehensive support system for career, and that means that we're not just waiting for the students to come to us and say, help. We're trying to reach out to them. We're trying to get to where they are. That means both setting things up from our side to make it easier for them, but also, and this is something which especially the folks on the student services side, they're going to be right in the middle of this. The rest of us, we're certainly going to be helping. But it's making sure we are reaching out to them. We are making a path that they can, we are helping them. In looking for, hey, looks like you're having a problem here. Can we help you out? Okay, we're trying to do the things that help them through rather than waiting for them to come to us for that. Okay? Career exploration. That word exploration is a key part of this. Okay, we want our students, we know that a lot of students are coming in here not really being sure what their end goal is. And a big part of this is to help them right from the start, right from the moment they're the first time they set foot on campus, to be able to start thinking about, what are my possibilities here? And what are the routes that can get me to those possibilities? And a lot of it is simply giving them that chance to explore. And building programs, building maps within our programs that give them the best flexibility to keep going forward. Okay? And then again, for workforce entry and transfer prep, right? We know that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to help our students transfer. We're trying to help our students get out in the workforce. And so that's still the goal. We always want to have that in mind here. Okay? So what isn't it? The point is not to push unprepared students through, right? We're not somehow going to take our classes saying, okay, we're just going to pass everybody. That's not the point. It's also not a barrier to exploration. Okay, and a lot of people feel like, oh God, you pick one of these paths and then you're stuck and you can't get out. No, that's not it at all. As I said before, exploration is part of it. But it gives them the guidance. It lets them say, you're not just out on your own. Go explore. We'll see you in a couple of years. Hopefully you'll have gotten something by then. But it's really saying, okay, you want to try this? Fine, and this is where that leads. You want to try that? This is where that goes. So that's really the goal here. It's that providing that guidance. Okay, so who's up next here?
All right, so probably a lot of you are familiar with this. This is what students currently see when they go into CCC Apply and they're asked to pick a major. Piece of cake, right? Yeah, no problem. So I think the joke is always that it's like higher on the A side of the alphabet than the Z side because they just get tired of scrolling and they tend to just pick the first thing that kind of halfway sounds appealing to them. That doesn't start them off on a very good foot, right? That just immediately they're going to feel overwhelmed, right? So guided pathways, one of our primary goals is to move away from hitting students with this really large amount of information to choose from to something a little bit more manageable. So that's what we are trying to be aware of students' perspectives. So this is an example of what it might look like. This is from Bakersfield College's website. So they can go here and they have a list here of their pathways. So that's just the bigger, broader, what are our caps, what we're calling caps, so that's them. And then when they click on it, see it opens up, so it accordions out to all these other options. If they wanted to drill down further, they could click on the option to get more information about that. Much more user-friendly, much more connectedness going on here for students so they can see things that have some kind of relationship to each other rather than just an alphabetical presentation of every degree that we have, right? So that is part of a foundational piece of guided pathways is how we strategically set up the caps and how we present them to students because that is often a big part of their first exposure to the college, right? So that's one of the ways that we make it more student-centered. So what's the student experience like in a career and academic pathway? So they're given more of a student-friendly perspective of higher ed. Information, we are trying to use student-centered language, which we'll even talk a little bit later about how we came up with some of the titles of the caps. We actually tried to default to some of the language students were using when they did our sorting activity back in the fall. But we are likewise trying to use language that, trying to move away from education-ese where you use, all these acronyms and words that these students have no idea what you're talking about. Come on, most of us, when somebody does that, do you just say, wait, what are you talking about? No, especially when you have this unequal power dynamic going on, right? So this is supposed to help reduce that power dynamic by using language that's more accessible to them. So let's see, we also maximize the students' use of financial aid by reducing the number of unnecessary units. Students will have an assigned team who's responsible for assisting them. So we're going to build in support from across the campus to help students to be successful and keep moving forward. First generation college students are the ones that are least able to navigate. So simple step-by-step pathways is supposed to help deal with that particular barrier. There needs to be more career interventions and career readiness. So this has more of a cohesive and focused way of talking about careers. And students will have a greater sense of community within the CAPS because they're going to be working with other people that have some shared goals and interests, strengths, weaknesses, they can work together more. So that's for our students. So while our perspective of the student experience, most of us kind of think that it's very linear, right? They come in, they apply, they get financial aid, they register on the day they register, they show up for classes, it's pretty straightforward, right? Well, what it looks like to the students is this, right? Because we don't always filter in the fact that they don't know where to go to do some of this stuff. They may have to stop doing it in the middle and go get more information and come back, and so it's much more of a convoluted kind of experience for them, which again, that's not the first impression we want to make with our students. We want them to feel welcomed and like it's a place where they can belong and that they're going to get support. So our goal is to move it to a pathway that's more understandable for students. So finally, one of the concerns is about the faculty experience for guided pathways. So really the intent is to help faculty have dialogue so we can find ways that we can all jointly support students that we're working with. It is not the intent to just do away with divisions and go to some other entire new structure of everything here at Citrus. We want to take the existing structures, build on them, and make it a better place for students to come in and be successful and get the support that they need. I think there are going to be some really exciting opportunities to have dialogue with people from outside of your department that maybe you don't have right now. So it's really a win-win for us, for the students. And so that's the faculty experience. Really, you're still going to be going and teaching your class. That isn't going to change. You're still teaching your class. We're not talking necessarily about any kind of content changes. Now, if you feel like you're in a class and you realize that you're working closely with another department, you might want to, flavor your class certain ways, but we're not doing a wholesale change of the curriculum. Make sense? All right. Who's next?
Hello, everyone. For those of you who I haven't met, I'm Gwen Harris. I work on the catalog and the schedule, and I'm also co-leading with Becky Rudd the design team that's been working on creating these caps. So this is this is about a week out of date, so we have to add a few names, take away a few names. This is the current version of the Mapping Caps team. We've been meeting for about the last year and a half. We've at this point had 26 meetings, 2 hours in length, and that's not including the 5 hours we spent in lockdown. So we got to know each other really well, and we'd like to thank Michelle for her backpack of goodies that kept us supplied. We've also had a student panel that came in. We invited them from different areas throughout the campus and asked for their feedback. They also joined us through a number of the meetings as well. Sorry. Okay. So creating the career and academic pathways themselves. Who here was in an inquiry group? Okay, a few people, great. So just to kind of re-explain what the inquiry groups are about, we took a consolidated list of our degrees and certificates. So if there were two very, very closely aligned, then we would put them together, like we wouldn't separate out the degree and certificate for dental assisting, for instance. So we got that list, and I'm going to kind of go over here to show you of degrees and certificates. We also had a list of potential occupations that could be associated with them. And that was Natalie put those together for us. And then we asked groups of 2 to 3 people to group them together, whatever seemed natural, what seemed like a common sense grouping for those. So altogether we had about 110 students, classified, faculty, managers. And so these are the results for them. So I'm just going to give you a sense. This right here, this is the faculty, the managers, and the classified staff. Okay, what I did is I took the names that they gave to their groups and kind of put some color to it. Please do, when we get into the activity, come over and take a closer look. It gives you a sense for what people were thinking belonged together. So this is, you can see there's a lot of commonality, right? There's a few areas here that were confusing, and we found that to be confusing no matter what, but mostly people shared the same ideas. You also want to look at the language used. So for instance, fine and performing art, visual and performing arts, that goes back to the names that we use versus what the students use. So this is the students. And you can see there's a lot more kind of chaotic color going on there. They were a lot more creative in how they grouped things together, and sometimes that creativity was based on not knowing very much about the area, but sometimes we had a whole group of veterans and they had their own experience, and so they were bringing that in as well. We did both. Do you want to go ahead and go to the next one? We had demographic surveys that we distributed to the students and then different ones to the classified and the faculty to make sure that we had broad representation from all areas. So we did manage to get all of the major areas that we were trying to get on campus. So in addition to this sorting activity, we also we had a survey about what do you want to call the meta majors or what became the career and academic pathways. And so this was either the most popular or the second most popular choice, and so we went with that. We did the sorting results. Then with those results from that, what we wanted to do was create the name of the career and academic pathways. And so what we did to do that is we took a look at what students were naming their groups. As much as possible, we tried to draw language from the students when we were creating that. You'll see that in some cases there might not be student language. And that's the feedback we've already gotten is, this isn't as clear as it should be. So, but for most part, we were trying to use a student perspective and the student feedback they provided to us when we were naming the caps. Okay. Okay, and then after that, we took the caps that we came up with. Originally, it was 5, and we had an option of 7, and we consolidated it down to the 6 that you're going to see today. We grouped disciplines and the programs, meaning the degrees, certificates, and skill awards underneath them. And what we have today is a very rough draft for you that's intended for you to rip apart in whatever ways you see fit and to provide a lot of feedback.
So when we finished our inquiry groups and we had all of this to work with over here, that's when the group that Gwen mentioned earlier sat down and said, okay, so let's use this and figure out what we want our meta majors caps to look like. And the foundation behind that was we wanted the programs, the degrees and certificates in each one to have a similarity in career, right? So for obvious reasons, we want to, when students have a general sense of what they want, they might jump around within arts, right? They might start in graphic design and then move into something else. But if they're in one group together, it allows that flexibility and their coursework to have a lot of overlap. We only want we want each program to live in one cap, one meta major. Now, there's a lot of work that will be done regarding the website, how students will be introduced to the meta majors, how they will understand the careers connected to them. And of course, we've had a lot of discussions about, well, if a student thinks of Cosmo as an art, but we're putting it in health, we definitely want to make sure that there's references for that, right? So we know that students might have a different perspective. So those things will be addressed, and Victoria's going to talk a little bit about that as well. So those are all things that we are thinking about and that we know are important. Flexibility in the first 2 semesters. So again, the idea behind the pathways is that a student can start out, take maybe 1 to 2 semesters of coursework. If they have a complete change of heart, change of mind, they're still okay, especially if they stay within one meta major. Now, if they go from art to STEM, then of course they might lose a little time, right? They might have some courses they didn't need. But if they stay within their general idea of what they want career-wise, ideally we're helping them by not having them take unnecessary coursework. Similar math and English requirements when possible. So that's never going to be 100%, but ideally, again, when they're coming in, if stats is their required math, then that will help them bounce around if needed. And then overall course alignment. So the other piece of this, again, is about allowing flexibility for them. So when we are thinking of, for example, like a lot of our computer science programs, you see game development, you might think, well, that should be in the arts. That coursework is all computer science and math. So we put it in the science and math category, right? So that's a big piece of this, is thinking about the coursework and how it aligns within each meta major. Okay. So if you haven't seen them online yet, or you haven't been to one of our prior events like this, these are the 6 that we created based on all of this. Now, we already have feedback from the last 2 inquiry groups about some name changes, so there's things already in the works for that. Art and design, business and technology, communication, human services. It looks like human services is going to go. Nobody's loving that, so we're going to get rid of that. Health and well-being, law and public service, science and math, and then what students will see and what you will see today are the breakdowns under each one. So A student will see science and math and then see the natural breakdowns from there. So right now, we have 3 in each. That doesn't mean we're going to have 3. We could have 2, we could have 4. Again, this is all why we're here today, to get your feedback on that. So, and now I'll turn it over to Victoria.
So the CAPs that you just saw, the Career and Academic Pathways, they are on our Citrus College website right now, but it is a working draft. So please understand that. They are not final. That's why you're here, to help us figure out what we should do with these. They were a first cut through our research, through our work in the fall with the student groups and the faculty groups that Gwen told you about, and the classified groups. That's what we came out with so far. Another thing I want to tell you about is our intention, really broad right now, for our website, which would be a student's first look into what they have, what their options are here at Citrus College in terms of a guided pathway. So we haven't really done much design yet. We have a meeting next week with Bob to talk about this, to really kind of figure out how is it going to look. We want it to be really interactive and to help the students explore, but at the same time have information on careers. That's really important because Guided Pathways is based on starting with career. What do they want to do? Is that career going to give them a decent living wage? They have to know salary expectations and local demand too. Are they going to be in something that's very hard to get into? Or maybe in another area of the world they might want to go and they can make a living out of that career. We want it to also look professional. We've seen some other colleges. Bakersfield College is our star model, and we've looked at a few others, but we're going to really try to take the best of all, make this website something that's going to work for us here at Citrus. So what are we going to do with all of you here today? Well, we're going to break you into small groups, and you're going to have, each of you will have a copy of the draft, the 6 CAPs, as well as for each of these, the set of the subgroups. So what you're going to be doing is talking about these. We have tape. We have scissors. Maybe I should have taken the scissors first. So you can tear them apart, literally tear them apart and tape them back together. Feel free to do whatever you would like, okay? Because we're going to then give you a piece of easel paper, and we'd like you to tell us what are the strengths and weaknesses that you see in this draft, okay? And then we'll have you come back together to discuss your answers. We'll have everybody come back together, and we'll talk about each team's results. Are there any questions right now about what you're going to be doing? Go ahead. Chris? Guided Pathways is a faculty-led framework throughout California. It's faculty-led. It's not administration-led. So because it is faculty-led, we need you to have your say and your feedback from your discipline and everybody's discipline in here. Because if we don't do that, if it's just our little subcommittee, we're not representing everybody. That's why we're doing this, why we've had, this is our 3rd meeting we've had with faculty. So far, how many total are over 50 to 60? Yeah, faculty. So.
Because then you would really get, I'm really sure on the schedule.
Yeah.
You would really get feedback.
So I'll tell you what's going to happen after this. We're going to be, once we come up with, after taking into account everybody's feedback and coming up with what we consider a good draft, we're going to be going on a road show. We're going to take it to Senate. We're going to take it to curriculum. Natalie and I have been visiting division meetings, so we intend on doing that as well because we want to make sure you're informed. Go ahead.
Also, this is also available now on the Guided Pathways page on the college website, so anybody can
we show that?
Can also give their feedback back. So we don't have, so we've got other folks.
I don't know if there is, yeah.
Yeah, it's all right if we can.
Okay, if we can find it, we'll call it up while they're doing their things.
Where would they go to the website to get the feedback? Or
Yes, yeah.
They can email us directly, but there's a comment box there too.
Yeah. it's really important that we get everybody's feedback on this. Okay. All right, are you ready to get started? Yeah? Let's count off.
Yeah, we're going to go ahead and count off. It does look like we have enough to have 6 groups. So as you go around, 1 through 6, and then reorganize. We'll just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
All right, so can I have your attention, please? Can I have your attention, please? Thank you. So we're going to start with Team 1 over here, and you're going to hear all about what they came up with. So can we have your attention so that you can hear them?
So we did look at potentially partnering that with business, which decided against it. Business was tough. I think the toughest thing that we thought was cosmetology. We didn't know exactly where to put that. It didn't make sense to us in health and well-being as much. So we put it in business. Not confident about that, but that's where we put it. Science and math, we just wanted to call it STEM. And we wanted to include engineering in science and math. Yeah, great. Everyone's on the same page on that one. Great. So yeah, we thought that made sense over there. And we also put transportation technology within that. Which someone's going to disagree, and you guys know more than I do, so we'll go with that. I think that's the main things. Business didn't feel the need to put the word technology in there just because I think it's confusing. So we just said business, it's broad enough, it's simple enough, just leaving it a business. STEM. Yeah, human services, you've already said that you're not going to stay with that, so don't need to add anything to that. I think we're good there. Oh, we'll put natural science in health and well-being, so bio in health and well-being. Cool. Sit down now.
Are you guys ready to present?
All right. So right here, exciting stuff. We cut the snot out of our pieces of paper there. We had 6 people, so we just traded the scissors. That's all we had to do. 6 pieces of paper. But what we kind of were targeting was what groupings would make sense where these students would naturally form cohorts, and more likely would these faculty interact with each other. And so it almost strikes me that as soon as we do this, we'll have to reassign all the deans. We'll have a dean of this, a dean of this, a dean of that, right? But what we came up with was, first of all, although it looks neat and the pieces of paper were all symmetrical and everything, it doesn't necessarily make sense for each one to have 3. And those 3 are of divergent sizes and what have you. But anyway, we came up with public works and transportation technology insofar as transportation technology being primarily the automotive folks, the heavy truck folks, and public works being primarily water technology, construction management, and those kinds of things. These are real hands-on, swinging hammers type of folks, and it kind of made sense for those groupings to stick together. For art and design, on the visual arts and the performing arts, I think we probably all agree there's a natural tie-in with that stuff, but we weren't feeling the natural tie-in when all of a sudden architecture was in the same place. Not that that isn't artistic, not that you're not designing, not that you aren't being expressive when you design a building, but there's a whole lot of stuff that goes into the engineering of a building that is completely alien to the cohort of folks that would find themselves over here, right? And so, although we're not sure about the fit, we heard that kind of, well, I don't know if cosmetology really fits there, we're not really sure about this either, but visual arts, performing arts, and cosmetology, that was a grouping that we came up with, okay?
And because cosmetology does a lot with...
And as it stands, our visual arts department and our cosmetology departments, they work together on a good many things, right? And so that's just something where we're trying to, those natural connections that already exist, why not foster some of that, right? And then over here, we've got design, computer science, and information technology grouped into one. Design being architecture, computer-aided design, right? Those things, there seems to be a natural tie-in with the information technology, perhaps on a I don't want to call it a lower level, but a different level, the more applied type stuff. Right. These are the folks using the programs, these are the folks writing the programs, and these are the folks designing the buildings for the people who are going to sit down and write the programs. Right?
Love it.
And given that it's
not exactly what to call that yet.
we didn't know exactly what to call that yet, but it's computer stuff.
Let's call it computer stuff.
Computer stuff. I'll put that on there right now. Computer stuff.
Computer junkies.
Okay. And then down here, we thought it was good enough for the U.S. government, so we created one called Health and Human Services. And so we've got health in here, we've got human services in here, huh? And then we thought that might be a good fit for kinesiology, although that might be an unnatural fit for where the deans find themselves now. Science and math, that one seemed to scream to us that it should be the sciences and math, although, again, that was one where physical science and natural science, there seems to be a connection there where there's probably a cohort of faculty that work together on a good many things, but I'm not really feeling that with the computer science side, right? And so we kind of separated that out, and then since it says math, we figured we'd put math in there, right? And then we have a business guru at our table who happens to also be a lawyer, and he suggested that the business track and the legal track has a lot of tie-in, and so we were creating a meta called business and law. And so right here we've got business, we've got legal theory, we've got administration of justice, right? And that's what we came up with.
Sold.
Oh, and the last two, I'm sorry. We have communications and education with the caveat that this education is essentially early childhood education, and so it's preschool through 6th grade, right? And so that being the case, that needs to be emphasized. And that's another one that we didn't quite come up with a name for yet. But as you can see, we came up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 that we felt the disciplines, the majors themselves had tie-ins that perhaps were not visible in what we started with. All right?
Thank you. Love it.
Next group, please.
No, we totally disagree with Mr. Brown. No, I'm just kidding.
So we looked at it a slightly different way. We looked at it from the student perspective. Student gets on here, looks at this page, what are they going to click on, what are they going to find? That's what we were trying to tie together. Not that we quite finished completely, but we did go through it. So we basically got rid of science and math. Nobody likes to take science or math anymore. But we came out with performing and visual art design because one of the problems is students we're looking at this page or looking, hey, I want to be in performing arts. There's no place where it says it. It doesn't say it there. So we need to put that on there. We thought that other than that, we kind of let those categories alone. We moved this one here. It says, information technology. Information technology. That would be web design. That's right. Web design. We took business technology. We ripped apart the science and math one and put in physical science and computer science into business and information technology. And questions about that, but it's not bad. We kind of like that. We got rid of human services, instead of behavioral studies, communications and behavioral studies. So we changed that name, put that in there, put history in there. Still can't find a place for history. It's a separate box. I was thinking the same was but that's the way it goes. The law of public services, we changed the law on emergency services. Administration, justice, legal, emergency health services, and legal theory, taking history out of there. Over here, let's see, we did, I talked about that one, behavioral studies, health and science, natural sciences, the health, kinesiology, we put that in there. And then we had CTE added on to do two things. One, put those places that belong in CTE automatically, in public works, transportation technology, and cosmetology, but also it should list other things that students know as CTE that belong in another place, but they would list it and just be linked. So you just, because they'll look there. Oh yeah, I want to go there. And so, I'll go down here. I'll go end up down there. So just link it to it. Where our major conversation was that the website is the most important thing. And the person who runs that website is going to have to be the most important person on campus. Because if you're talking about keeping track of salary and job trends, that person's got to be on top of it. That's a full-time position for somebody. So good luck with that.
Reading software, not
Yeah. Good luck with that one.
Thank you.
Is going to talk to us about the business administration.
So yeah, just start with business, and there were some other like-minded folks out there. We kind of just got rid of technology, although obviously there is a lot of technology in business, but we feel business is very broad, and really it should encompass multiple categories and not just, you can't really just mash it into 3. We like information technology as just one of, it should be really more like 6 or 7 categories. Then you can have, finance and economics as a category, marketing as a category, accounting as a category, and then if you want to, jumble together like HR management and maybe other aspects, entrepreneurship, things like that. But really, business we felt shouldn't be tied down to just 3. It should be, it's very broad, and that's also why we kind of just crossed out the technology and called it business administration.
Bryce?
The only thing that I really want to talk about, which I kind of agree with my other automotive advocate over there, is a lot of the trade technology-based courses and stuff like that should really go into its own CTE column. Definitely automotive and medium heavy truck and stuff doesn't belong in business and technology. I think it belongs in its own sort of trade technology category. So this is something that I want to kind of add on to what everyone else seems to already be saying. So that's really all I have to say about that.
So we added a category, trade technology. We included cosmetology. We included all the hands-on things, and some of the things that fell in different categories also were C, trade technology. So for instance, we have public works. A lot of the stuff in public works, so this is law and public services. We left it that way because we cut out the one we didn't like and we put it somewhere else. And we have C, trade technology. This whole tile should be also in here. So if you go in here, you see this technology, and then that would say also public works. And put this whole tile in each one. What we put up here is we have a behavioral science block. We call it behavioral science. We have administration of justice and human services, which is anthropology, psychology, all those things. Because a lot of that ties in with the administration of justice. We had a nice psych person in here who was telling us how they all connected. So I'm going to go with her. And then we have art and design. So design and computer science have a lot in common. They have a lot in common. As Dave pointed out, you get to this, to this, to this, and we just didn't, we left the architecture out. But we have the computer science, we have the architecture, design, and engineering. We didn't put the building guys in there. We left them over here. But then you have the art, performing arts huge, visual arts, but I did like that you guys put Cosmo there, because it does link in. I thought that was a good, if you had to put it somewhere that wasn't something called trade technology, it would go okay there. But personally,
I'm glad I was here to represent your department.
none of my students would ever look in anything called art and design or the esthetician or the cosmetology. They wouldn't. But the website needs to have a nice search button. And I put in esthetician and boing, there it comes up, and so we're good. Right?
I'm going to focus a lot of what I was thinking about, but then hopefully, there's more astute observations than what I had.
Like he's by himself.
The thing I couldn't wrap my head around was the difference between what is human services and what is public services. Do we have an answer for that?
There's a teacher right there. Look at that.
I know.
So that was the thing I wasn't quite sure about. And again, we were taking that more student-centered position as well, right? And so again, I might be muddling what the goals of this afternoon are. But I completely go with what you are saying, Mr. Korn. There's a part of me that wanted to hijack the computer and put up Pasadena City College's website. Because the minute that comes up, you will see it says, do you want to be a teacher? Do you want to be a chemical engineer? It has the actual careers listed there. So I'm coming to Citrus, and I want to maybe be a high school teacher.
Where do I go? What button do I push?
Which one is this? So that's, yeah.
So if I could just add to this, that
Yeah.
this will not be the first view that a student sees. They will see something like what PCC has, or something like with questions.
Right.
What do you want to be? What kind of, I don't know, we don't know yet about this.
And that's sort of my point then, that maybe
Yeah.
this doesn't matter that much. As long as you've got that hook to get you in there, right? And then you start to find where that is, right? So say for history, one of the reasons I'm here, hey, we need people from history to find out where that goes. I don't know, sure. Yeah. Law, throw it in there. That's the obvious one. You could be a geographer, you could be an anthropologist, you could be a museum curator, you could be a high school teacher, you could work for the CIA. There's these different positions, you could be a researcher, you could work in the library as an archivist and things like that. So there's all sorts of things you could do. I don't think it fits well. And so, again, my big bandstand is like, whatever happened to liberal arts, right? I wanted to come to college to just learn a little bit about everything. Read the classics, know a little bit about things. And I realize many students don't, but my colleague, Professor Heyman here, when I knew her as a student way back in the day, was trying to transfer to a liberal arts college at Pitzer College, right? And so I would argue there may be a couple of them still out there on our campus.
UCC has a whole cap for liberal arts.
As Mr. Woolen pointed out, we didn't see any mathematics in science and math. And we like the idea of information. We did see how information fits with business and technology, but I could also see how information fits with communication too. So maybe that's blurring just a little bit there. But what else am I missing there, Jan?
Yeah, the communications and human services we weren't super stoked on, but we weren't really sure what to do with it, so we went with communication and social services. But I think one of the other groups kind of handled that question. But we were good with arts and design because you guys said you were adding performance in there, right? So we were like, that looks good. And yeah, we didn't use our scissors at all. Thank you.
Just a general question and comment. We all seem to be trying to work within this number six framework, and it's very confining.
Yes, okay. That's
You don't have
to. You don't have to. We don't need to have 6. We started with 5, we went to 7, we came to 6. Maybe we go back up to 7 after the results of this.
How about 9 or 12?
We get to some sort of administrative limitations because we have to have adequate administrative support for each one to provide the support services for them. So we're kind of looking at what other colleges have done. We've seen as few as 5 or 4. We've seen as many as 10. I don't think I've seen any more above that unless maybe they're a larger school. It would just be hard to manage that kind of stuff.
That's made it sound like you were counting dean.
Or not even that, just also from a student perspective, the idea is to turn on, if you have 10, I mean, it's just, we feel like less is a little bit clearer, but
we're going to take this and look
the mapping and the coursework.
Can we hear from our last group?
So ours are very similar to what a lot of other groups were great minds are thinking like, we didn't use scissors either. We kind of just used it.
Okay. So
last slide to show them what the first 2 groups did, and then just show them this. What order you want to do them to show them just so maybe do where is it? So it's back behind it. Yeah, it's messy. My team's close now. Sorry, tap, what happened on track. Just go to green. Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. No, I told you. There's green. There it is. Red. That's good.
felt, I felt, with, we don't have to just there's some way to say, that language, that,
All right, so to share just a little bit, I realize we're a little over, but really quickly, I just have one more slide. Just to share what kind of things that our previous groups said. And arts, performance, and design, the visual arts division, they would like this. So we're definitely going to change art and design to that. And we don't know about human services. You've given us some ideas, so it's good because it's not working. And then also this idea, if you put together technology with business, it sounds like office technology, which is not the intent maybe. Students may get confused. So we're going to come up with a CAP to group together technology, industry, and trade, and engineering. That's right? Go ahead.
Oh, just to say that these are all ideas that were brought up at the prior one. We're going to bring all of that, including what we hear today. So none of this is set in stone.
Except for the first one. That one is.
The first one was definitely a strong recommendation from that area.
Yeah.
All the other ones were just kind of.
They are feedback.
Nobody liked human services, though.
And change it to arts with an S.
Making sure that that's
Arts and performance and design. Arts, performance, and design. We're hearing you. Oops. And they recommended, the last two teams, that we move health into science and math cap, which I think we heard from some of you. And English and literature focus, not captured with a communication and human services. So again, these are things we are aware of. We're not sure what will happen with these. And finally, like you said, Chris, we're going to certainly make that strong link. So if a student looks somewhere and they're looking for something, then it would be a C also. Would take them to a different cap. Okay. Any questions? We certainly appreciate your help. Can you help me out here? We want to show you one last thing that we have on our website where you can give some feedback.
Technology, industry, trade, engineering, that seems a bit much here.
It does. So,
Yeah, that was just
what
one
was your
of the ideas
feedback?
that we came up with. And we're hearing from a lot of different, I think the takeaway on that is that trade needs to be represented in a different way. It isn't necessarily that those have to go together, but just.
Yeah, that was just one group's. But several groups have called out that word, used the word trade and wanted that in. And so I think that's something that we'll definitely need to work in and figure out for sure.
And the design team, the Mapping CAPS design team, Becky and Gwen are the co-leads for that. They are the team responsible for really bringing everybody together, all of us, including Dave, plus many other faculty, to come together and see and sift through all of your really good ideas and see what makes sense.
And there will be another, we'll have another event where we will present the new version of this based on these 3 meetings. And then go from there. So.
Yeah, and that we don't know when yet.
Yeah, we haven't
We're
set
setting that up. All right.
This is the guided pathway webpage on our website. If you would like to, for your fellow faculty who couldn't make it to one of these events, you can just click here on this link. And if you haven't seen this already, they can view the PDF that you all cut up and mess with today. And then they can use this online comment form. So it's a smart sheet. It'll come straight to Victoria and myself. We share it with the whole team. Or they can obviously just talk to anyone from this group. So if you happen to know one of us and you want to give us some feedback, just
please
give us a
do.
call, send us an email. You don't have to use the form, but it's just there for general use. So
What's the timeline of this whole project? Or is there not a timeline?
There is. So our intent will be for fall 2020 to pilot one of these. We're looking at this current science and math, whichever one that ends up morphing into, because we still think it will be the simplest one in terms of the fewer number of programs, and maps are already started. Michelle, you've made a lot of those maps already.
Mapping for the sciences is pretty sequential. And there's a lot of overlap, so those are some of the easier ones to map.
And then beyond that, though, we're not sure how the rest will roll out. I think it will depend on how the first one goes. Because keep in mind, it's not just presenting this, it's not just the website, it's also the support team that's underneath, that's attached to each to help our students. That's the part we're starting to work on in our Guided Pathways meetings. What are we going to do next? What do students need from us? Let's see, anything else? And like we said, we're going to be going to the shared governance groups this spring. We'll probably be at Senate. We're expecting the last 2 meetings of the semester in May. And the math and science faculty will be consulted to map the programs, so that way we can roll out that first science and math cap next year. Thank you for coming today. And if I could ask you, if you could please tell 2 or 3 of your colleagues about our website and have them take a look, because we have to get the word out.
yeah, thanks for taking the time.
Thank you very much.